And welcome back to the channel, everyone. We have quite a bit to talk about today. I was going to make this both an Ampera and Flexa video, but I'm trying to make these videos a little shorter, and that would probably be like 40 plus minutes after editing. I really don't have a whole lot to talk about with Ampera, only because we don't have the white paper, we don't have the protocol just yet. But along those lines, do remember that they are looking for 20 volunteers to help with their user testing in the new Ampera protocol, and that is on the testnet. I believe it's the Gorelli testnet, and that tweet was from 10 days ago, so I'm sure they might have already picked people. I don't know yet, but we'll find out. And if you haven't signed up, just go ahead and go to that Google Docs and add your information if you wish to participate. And this is going to need a little bit more of a higher understanding, which we're going to get into that here in a second. So what we do have to talk about is the spaces. When this happened, a lot of people, they were a little bit confused, were a little upset. And really, I think that was due to the fact that there was a lot of information put out in this recording. You just sort of had to go over it a few times. Myself, I had to at least go over it 3 times before I even made this video. And I'm going to try to edit in what I can when it comes to these points that I'm talking about. I'm just going to film this right now without doing the recording, and then I'll put it in later. Facing a little time constraint and kind of want to get this out this weekend. And we'll start off with the first thing that people got confused about a lot, and that was just the idea of how this protocol is going to work, what it is. It turns out there's quite a few people in the community that have never been in DeFi, and I'm not surprised. I'm really not. I mean, a lot of people in the community are just holding the token, waiting for something to happen. They're not active. Not everyone in crypto is active in the actual ecosystem, and I think that's where a lot of this confusion came from. So I'm going to try to explain a little bit, dumb down a little bit what I can, but this is going to be a lot of homework on you, the listener. So the prerequisite for this video, I believe, is Whiteboard Crypto. It's a very good YouTube channel, and he helps break down exactly how this DeFi works, use cases, and just examples. This is one here where, it's basically showing the liquidity pool, how it can go infinite on one side, depending on the amount put in. But that's a good example. Impermanent loss, flash loans, new Uniswap V3. Yeah, he's got all sorts of good videos. Just go ahead and give him a view if you're a little bit confused about DeFi. But if you know a little bit more, then you could probably skip this. It's still good, just refresher. So, one of the biggest gripes that I heard was, oh great, they're turning it just into a governance token. Well, not really. You see, they said in the Twitter Spaces that Flex is still going to use AMP to collateralize, but AMP will actually have this additional feature where it can actually be used as governance. And people also got worried because it turns out that AMP isn't going to be the total only collateral on the protocol. But Tyler did mention that with the governance, there's a chance to actually vote to make AMP more of a collateral part of the Ampera protocol. And I think people thought, they thought back to this governance, the old AMP governance that we were using previously. Last thing that passed was back in March of last year. There hasn't really been a whole lot of activity. There hasn't been really any need for any more governance proposals until we now have the Ampera Foundation, which is actually building the entire protocol. And if you know anything about DeFi, there's usually a good chance that the voting for governance, being an early active participator, usually comes with some benefits when you started helping grow the network later down the road. And one last thing about this governance part, I'm looking forward very, very much to the white paper, because there is a possibility that it might help solve the whale problem with governance. If you don't know, a lot of governance, a lot of very rudimentary governance, is just who has the most votes. It doesn't care about wallet size or how long you've held or anything like that. So when that happens, a lot of the time the people that got in early can just sort of make the votes whatever they want, even if it goes against what the community actually needs. It's known as just the whale problem in governance. Hopefully Tyler's come up with a solution. I know they're working on it at the Ampera Foundation. Just something I think you're really going to start adding some sort of time constant, as well as wallet activity, maybe community activity, because that's another thing with the governance structure of Ampera. It's a lot different than normal governance structures because we won't have to unstake from Flexa capacity. At least that's what's being said now, because Tyler mentions that there's the partition parts of the AMP token contract. Again, that's part of how they went from FXC to AMP token, was they took the collateral partitions of the protocol that they were using and they put that in the token itself. When you do that, then you can do things like maybe voting for governance while you're still staked. You won't have to pull your stake to go vote. And I'm hoping this actually works out for the community, and maybe they can do something about this too, where you needed at least 1 billion AMP in order to submit a proposal. Back then that was a lot of money. Right now it's still a lot of money, roughly $5 million. But hopefully they can knock that down or do something else for the community. Maybe even pull together to submit a proposal. We'll all see when this comes out in the white paper. Now, one of the other things I wanted to talk about was Tyler mentioned this problem, which it is a problem with L2s, such as zkSync here, and that's just basically writing back to the main chain. It does take a while. For example, zkSync, and here is the perfect example, zkSync-era block explorer. See here there's a lot of verified and there's an included. What does that mean? Well, that's literally the difference between this transaction hash being sealed up on the L2. You can't add anything more to it, can't do anything else, but the transaction hash not yet executed on Ethereum mainnet. So right now it's just on L2, funds haven't arrived on L1 yet. And when we go back, we can see that it's 4 hours ago. So there's quite a bit of difference, at least 4 hours here. Sometimes it can take hours, even a day or two. I mean, well, in the early days, it probably did take a day or two, but now it just feels like a day or two. I'm sure 4 hours is enough. I know when I was looking at the old zkSync Explorer, I saw a lot that were just a couple hours apart. The zkSync-era. And funny enough, this tweet came a day after the Spaces. Yeah, the Spaces was February 15th, day after. Hey, mainnet zkSync-era is here. So yeah, now they're building even more on zkSync. Era is probably involved here. It might not be. We're just speculating right now. But what Tyler said was very relevant to the issues that faces L2s to L1s, the writing back. And one last thing. People were like, oh, well, everyone's going to start unstaking. I see everyone's unstaking. Flux capacity is going to go down, 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 down. Well, let's look at the numbers. I like numbers. I'm sure you do. So this was on Valentine's Day, right before the Spaces. Everyone was real hyped up. Token staked. 23.8 billion. Make it nice and easy number. So 23.8. What happened? What's it like right now? Well, according to 58 minutes ago, the AMP token bot said 23.6 billion. Yeah, I don't think anyone's really afraid. There might have been a few people that were afraid and pulled out. Hence the reason why that number went down just a little bit. But if you do the math, yeah, that's looking pretty close. So maybe we'll go ahead and do this. 23.8 times 0.994. That's a little close to the number. So what? You want to say that it went down 0.6%? Sure, go ahead. But yeah, the numbers don't lie. That's data. Anyway, everyone, this was a short video. I've got another video on Flex that might be a little bit longer. There's been some interesting things that are happening over there, especially some interesting new hires, and there'll be some even more interesting things to come. I'll have a little bit of an announcement, going to try to do something for the community. Just trying to nail down exactly how I want to do it. But I should have that video out hopefully later in the week. And hopefully I should get this one out today. And it is Sunday, February 19th, just so that way you know. Alright everyone, take care. Have a good one.